Good evening. Welcome to another in a series of webinars, live webinars from Chevral Aganat Teva, SPNI. I'm Jay Shofet. I'm coming to you from my car. I'm in the north. Was in the north all day on a work trip with our CEO and some planners, looking at the rewilding issues and the rehabilitating the damage in the north. Ceasefire, and today was a historic day to be up north. Sure you all know that Bashir Assad fell. Syria is now run by a group of rebels, and Israel is tentatively excited about this. It's kind of fraught, but it's kind of exciting. The Assad family has been in charge of Lebanon for 54 years, Syria, sorry, for 54 years now. So happy day here in some ways. And we're a week into week plus into the ceasefire with Lebanon. So I don't know. There's always some hope. I have a really interesting webinar tonight on one of our favorite animals and our favorite species. We're going to be returning the gazelles to the wild, and you're going to hear about that in just a couple minutes from our field director. I'm not sure what her title is, Faygle, who's basically in charge of the day to day at the Gazelle Valley, and really getting those gazelles back into the wild, which is the point. Um, Welcome everybody. Let us know where you're from. I'm not actually looking at the chats on my phone. It's a little different. Oh yeah, you're telling us where you're from. Hello from Norway. Please put it in. We always like to hear that. Appreciate everybody being on. Really excited to hear Faygle. I've been to the Gazelle Valley a few times in the last couple months, and it's really, really a fascinating place. I'm sure you're all going to want to visit as soon as you get to Israel. When you get there, and you'll look up Faygle and her boss Amanda, and you'll get a really behind-the-scenes tour of Gazelle Valley. Wow, it's so great to see over 100 people here, and from Monterey and from Ashkelon and Beersheba and Orlando and Berlin and New Mexico and New Jersey and South Carolina. We're just really, and Toronto. Gloria Temkin. Hi, Gloria. Faygle is from Toronto. I don't know if you guys know each other. Silver Spring and San Francisco and Modine and London and wow, British Columbia. We're just really thrilled to have everybody here, all the continents represented. Tucson and the UK and Malaya Dumim. Good stuff, guys. We're gonna get going. I see you can't see me here. Good go. We're gonna get. I know. I from Kensington, New York City. Really great to see everybody here. And we're going to get going in just a minute. People are still coming in, but I think Faygo, we can get moving. People are interested in hearing. I'm going to get on the road again, head towards the center of the country while you're on, but I'll be back for last 10, 15 minutes. We'll take some questions and answers. And meanwhile, I will. It's my pleasure to introduce Faygle Train. Faygle is I think relatively new in the Chevra, but she's just been a great advocate and presenter of our work, including in a recent big conference in the UK. So we are very happy to have her on tonight to talk about the whole process of what we've done in Gazelle Valley and how we are rewilding those gazelles. Really, 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 really interesting stuff, Faygle. Thank you very much for being here,
Of
and
course, looking forward.
welcome everybody from all the places.
Okay. Shall I begin?
Go for it.
Okay. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you're from, potentially even good morning. My name is Faygle Train. I'm originally from Toronto, so hello to all my fellow Canadians. And I am the operations or field manager of Gazelle Valley in Jerusalem. And I'm delighted to be speaking to you today about a topic very close to all of our hearts, rewilding two of our protected species, the focus on gazelles, and for bonus, I'll be mentioning our tortoise release as well. There we go. For those who have not been to Gazelle Valley yet, I hope to see you soon. This is just a quick map to situate where we're going to be talking about today. We are located in the middle of Jerusalem. We are the approximate blue triangle space. We are within walking distance of spaces like the Hebrew University. We are relatively close to Gunsaka, or the center of town, and you can even see up in the other side of the map, the upper right-hand corner, the old city of Jerusalem. So we are very much urban nature. We are the greenest, most incredible space right in the middle of highways and streets and neighborhoods. And you can actually see that in this picture here. This is our large lake. We have two lakes and river systems. I'll explain a little bit more shortly. The street in the north part of the photo is one of the large streets in the area. And right in the corner, at the top right-hand corner, we have the beginning of the Begun Highway. And in brief, the story of Gazelle Valley was this has been a valley for many, many years, one of the low spots of the city of Jerusalem. And many years ago, development started to happen more and more across Jerusalem. Neighborhoods were built up, streets were built, highways began to be built. And by the early 1990s, as the highway was being built, the natural animals and plants of the area were being diminished because animals were being hit by cars, plants were being lost because of urbanization, building new streets and houses on top of them. And the local residents, the people themselves who lived here, had what was called a mavak, or a struggle to protect the land. There was the threat of more buildings being built on this incredible green space, and they said, no, not on our watch. We are protecting nature. And for about 20 years, average normal citizens, just like you and me, fought to protect nature tooth and nail, and they did succeed. Almost exactly 10 years ago, the park was established. And that's a little bit of the background into how we got this green space in the middle of a city that is incredibly biodiverse. We have just over 140 endangered mountain gazelles. That is about 3% of Israel's population. They are an endangered species. Unfortunately, there's only a few thousand left in the world. We have about 250 species of birds. This morning, we saw some incredible birds of prey, for example. Here we have a kingfisher in the photo. We have multiple species of reptiles, amphibians, lots of fun snakes. We have over 500 species of plants, which help provide food and habitat for all these other animals. And we also have a very, very special water circulation system, which includes two winter ponds, a river system, and we've actually been recognized globally for our work with animal conservation, as well as providing a climate change mitigation strategy for runoff water in Jerusalem to leave the streets and to come into our low valley into these water systems. And that helps protect the streets, it helps protect the people on the streets. And it helps also create life because we have all this water to nurture the plants and animals. And again, this is in the middle of a city, and people come to us. We are open every day of the year except for Yom Kippur, the Jewish holiday. We are free. We have information in three languages. Why would we want to give away our animals? Why would we want to rewild them, send them out into nature? Here in the middle of a city, it's a great opportunity for people of all ages and backgrounds to come and learn about these plants and animals. But we do need to rewild them. And I'm going to be explaining today a little bit of how and why and the influence of our protected animal releases, what it's meant for the Israeli ecosystem and the people of Israel themselves. So, for those who have not attended one of the other webinars on the mountain gazelle, welcome to the beautiful, wonderful creatures. Gazelles are relatively small bovines. They are cud chewing. Gazelles, they are not deer. A lot of people come and ask to see the Bambis. These animals grow their horns, both males and females have them. They stay on their head their entire life. Unlike deer, moose that lose their antlers once a year. They are herbivores, they eat plants, and they are incredibly important to ecosystems. So I could be jealous and say, no, I want to keep all the gazelles in the park. I love them all. But they are very, very important to the Israeli ecosystem. And that's why we want to release them. That's why we want to take the healthy animals that we have and release them to spread healthier genetics and to increase the population size out in nature. And due to the nature of the valley, having an enclosed space where the animals can breed and grow up healthy and strong, we know that the animals we're releasing are of benefit to the wild populations. So I've included a few reasons here why this is a particularly important species for us to rewild. First, like many other species, they are part of a food chain. They are prey for some of the larger predators in Israel, for example, jackals, but also via their droppings, they help fertilize many different species of seeds. So they eat the plants and they help fertilize the soil with their droppings. They help spread the seeds, and that creates a more bountiful vegetative ecosystem. A big reason we love gazelles in Israel is their importance in preventing forest fires, or at least managing how rapidly a fire may spread, because they graze. They eat dry grasses, and because of that, they prevent fires from spreading more rapidly over all this dry tinder. And in very arid desert countries like Israel, that's a lifesaver. They are also very sensitive animals in many ways whenever there's a change in their environment, whether it be to the amount of food they have or the type of predators or other animals in the environment. They are aware of that and they respond to it, which in science terms we call a bioindicator for ecosystem health. In other words, how they behave and how healthy they are tells us whether their environment, whether their whole ecosystem is also healthy. And last but not least, we protect them because they are an endangered species. They are important to our culture, to our history, and to our biology, to the whole ecosystem. And over the last many years of the state of Israel, as we've developed urban cities and spaces in the natural land where they live, we've removed spaces for them. We continue to hunt them. It is now illegal because they are an endangered species, but there are still people hunting them illegally. And there are increased predators. We have a lot more jackals. We have because of the more wild dogs. And we're going to look at some of those predators later. But all this paints a picture of an animal that has severely decreased in number, and we are working very, very hard to bring them back. And just in the little guide to animals at the bottom, they are the orange endangered circle. The population in the valley, as I said, we are an enclosed space and we work very hard with a team of wildlife professionals to ensure that our animals are healthy. And again, healthy animals being released into the wild helps ensure that wild populations are getting the best genetics. The valley started back before all the battle to save it. There was a wild herd of about 35 gazelles. By the time the highway was built and people were moving into the area and dogs were being introduced and cars were hitting them, the herd was decimated. And by the time the valley was saved in 2015, there were only 3 gazelles left of the original 35. A few gazelles were introduced from other parts of the country, mainly the north. And from that initial 10, 12 gazelles, the number began to spread. By 2021, when we started the gazelle release program, we were at about 80 gazelles in the park. That has continued to shoot up. The year later, 127. We are now at about 140, 145 in the end of 2024. That being said, you can actually see the dip on the graph from 127 to 104. That dip is because we started to release even more. We started slow. We started to see the impact of our releasing on the individual gazelles. And when we realized that we had a successful program, we continued and we increased the number. What is a gazelle release? I keep using the phrase, let's talk about it. Rewilding or releasing gazelles is taking them out of this urban environment, out of this enclosed park, and releasing them into the forest, releasing them into a wild area where they can be a wild animal as intended. So since 2021, we've released over 65 gazelles, sorry. We are getting very close to 70. We actually have another release tomorrow morning. Gazelles are typically released with ear tags. You can see in both pictures a little yellow tag. They're often released with a GPS collar as well. The area we release them is often decided with our partners at the Israel Nature and Parks Authority. It's the government body for nature protection. And they work very closely with us, as you will see in all the coming slides, just to make sure that our team at SPNI and their team are doing everything we can to research and support these wild animals. The places we've released them are often places where the communities or populations of gazelles need to be revived, that they've had some sort of hardship. For example, at the beginning, we first started to release them in the north of Israel, predominantly because of increased predators. So the community was being eaten. Then we started very successfully in the hills of Jerusalem, where there had been wildfires as well as also predators. But the wildfires killed a lot of gazelles. So by releasing them there, we are able to bring new genetic diversity and also increase the number of gazelles. People who are involved very quickly. Lots of people are involved in a gazelle release because everybody is excited by it. So many people care. We really, really love this incredible symbol of Israel and its culture, its history, its religion. We have a wildlife veterinarian who will be there to do the actual tranquilization, and to do a health check before we release the gazelle. You'll have obviously SPNI staff, such as myself, will be there to help coordinate all the different people to make sure that communication is working, to help record, and then to file reports at the end. We have staff from the Israel Nature and Parks Authority. They're there to, again, sometimes help make sure that everything's going well, although they, of course, trust us. We sometimes have researchers. In this picture, there's someone bending over a camera. We'll hear about her work. And the big, wonderful part of our work is how many volunteers are engaged. You can see some volunteers actually on the outside part of the fence, and we'll hear about the work they do, which is basically watching for the tranquilized animal to make sure that it doesn't go missing and that it's doing okay. What happens is kind of like a safari in the middle of Jerusalem at 6 in the morning. I highly recommend all of our friends and partners to come and join us one time. There's nothing quite like it. First, we go out in a truck, again, wildlife veterinarian, we have the tranquilizer, and we're checking based on the season, based on age, based on gender for the most optimal gazelle. There are seasons where we won't release females just because they might be breastfeeding a fawn. There are seasons where we might want to release a young male, just because it's the appropriate time of year. So off we go. We are checking for the right gazelle. And as you can see in this picture, the little pink arrow in his tushy, we have tranquilized the gazelle. It takes about 4 to 12 minutes for a gazelle to feel the impacts, to start to wobble, and to fall down. And that is the job of the volunteers. They are outside the valley with big binoculars, and the minute a gazelle is shot, I am in the car telling them exactly what direction the gazelle is going, what he looks like or she looks like, how fast they're running, and they will be looking with the binoculars because we don't want the gazelle to fall maybe into water, or we don't want to lose them, because if we lose them, it's a waste of tranquilizer and it's not good for the gazelle. Once we catch the gazelle and it's fallen asleep, this is our wildlife vet and one of the workers. We take him in, we do the health check, and we put the GPS collar. This is starting to put on the collar and the ear tag. The gazelle is then put into the cage and transported. We start so early in the morning for one main reason, which is we don't want to tranquilize gazelle on a truck in rush hour. So lots of people get up really early in the morning to help ensure that everything is done for these animals' safety. And I have two lovely videos for you of the next part, which is the actual release. This is the part people love to see. And this is in slow motion. And off she goes. Those are two beautiful, healthy females that will immediately go and join their new herd. And this is another short video with a male. And this is from many years ago when we released into the north of Israel. You can see just how fast and strong these animals are. And again, this is after having been tranquilized. He's raring to go. He's doing just fine. And there. And this is a fence, a relatively high fence. And look how high he can jump. And there he goes. The big question people ask whenever they hear us talking about releasing animals is, do they survive? How do they do once you've let them go into nature? Um, we know that they adapt very well, actually. Out of the over 65 that we've released, we have been able to follow through with everything from field cameras to those GPS collars, and we've seen that they are thriving. A few of the initial lessons we started to learn from our releases was one, that they're actually quite healthy and independent right from the beginning. When we first started releasing them, there was about 10 days of watching to make sure that they were okay after the anesthesia. They were fine. Now, when we release them, you can see from those videos almost immediately, they might wobble a little bit. It might take them a few minutes, but then they sit down, they start eating. We usually stay at the release site for a little while just to make sure everything's fine, but they don't need our constant support. The herds accept them. Everything is fine. If we release the appropriate gender and age at the appropriate time, there's no reason for them not to be accepted. For example, we would not release a very strong adult territorial male during mating season because we would just be asking for them to fight and possibly kill one or the other. And we also learn how they respond to potential risks. So, for example, most of our gazelles don't immediately jump onto a highway. They don't. They are staying in nature, they're staying with the herd, and that's incredibly important. These are two pictures that show how they've been accepted by the herds and how they're adapting. The first picture is two males. You can see the yellow ear tag on one of the two males. That's one we've released. And here he is in the fields, and he's with a male who was born in nature, and they are friends. He's part of the herd. Everything is fine. In the other picture, which I really, really love, these were two females that we released from the valley at two different points, both in the spring. And they were released into the same space. They were released and found each other. They're part of the same herds now, and they walk together as friends. So people sometimes say, oh, how could you separate them from their family? Well, they not only find a new loving family, but sometimes they also find their friends from the valley, which is really fantastic. And I wanted to touch a little bit about the longer term impacts of releasing animals, because obviously the initial, wow, look at those videos, the initial, wow, I helped save a gazelle, it feels great. And you know that you're helping an animal join its relatives in nature and mate with the same species in nature and spread the genetic diversity and all those wonderful things. But for the long term, again, this is an endangered species and a species that we've helped to decimate. So how can we use our releases to understand how to save them? So we have a lot of different partners, and one of our partners in releases is Ramat HaNadiv, which if you haven't been to Israel, I highly recommend you visit. It's sort of the North Center. And we have been giving them, rewilding with them, I should say, pregnant females mainly. And they use those pregnant females in all sorts of research studies. And one of the studies they do is the ability to survive when they are transported and placed into a new environment. How well do they survive? Very well. They check for patterns of behavior. What do they recognize? What do they prefer to eat? How do they behave if they see someone, a different gazelle from a different herd? How do they behave if they see a different animal that maybe they don't recognize? At our valley, we don't have certain types of animals. So how do they react to all of that? And then, of course, they're also able to study, with our help, how they respond to threats. Once they've been exposed to something, do they recognize it? Do they understand that it's dangerous for them? And this is a incredible photo from my boss and SPNI ecologist Amir Balaban. This is not from the park, but it is from Jerusalem, from the years around when the park was established, of a gazelle looking at the highway. This gazelle, if he goes onto the highway, he can be hit by a car, he can be killed. How does he understand what is a threat and what isn't a threat? And that's what we, with our partners, are trying to study, how to protect them. Ramat HaNadiv and the Israel Nature and Parks Authority, with our help, are studying, again, threats. So, for example, Ramat HaNadiv just a few years ago published studies on how gazelles respond to threats like the golden jackal. That's one of the big predators here in Israel. But they also studied wild boars. I didn't even know this before I started doing a little bit more research. Wild boars will eat baby fawns right at their first 5, 6 weeks of life. They are considered a predator of gazelles. So how do mother gazelles in Ramat Nadiv, coming out of Gazelle Valley where they're not exposed to these animals, how do they recognize them as a threat and how do they protect their babies? Wild dogs, the bottom left-hand picture, we've had more since the start of the war. Many wild feral dog packs have come in from the Gaza border and they attack wild animals and farm animals. So how do gazelles also recognize those as a threat? That's what we're able to study when we release a gazelle, and we release it with GPS collars and ear tags so we can follow their responses. And the last picture was just from a few months ago, from hunters, because we release animals sometimes into areas where people might be able to drive by and see them. We obviously try not to do that, but an illegal hunter might be trying to find the gazelles. They're a trophy animal. People eat them. So this photo, thankfully, they were able to save 4 gazelles in the picture. But it's not all doom and gloom. Of course, releasing pregnant females, you're able to see how gazelles mother. How do they protect these adorable little babies? And here's a cute little video from our partners. Something was suspicious. And she's going to her mother for comfort. She goes to try to drink. Mother gives her a little kick and off they go. But we can see with videos like this how they mother, how they work with their fawns, and how they protect their fawns. Another really, really important element of our research is ecological corridors. So, for those who don't know what an ecological corridor is, it's basically a natural area of land by which organisms or animals can move. And they can move to find safe space, they can move to find food, or move to find a mate. And we used to have this larger ecological corridor in Jerusalem. The Gazelle Valley was part of that, and because of the highways, it was cut off. So we are releasing our animals into areas where they can have that green space and they can move and find a mate or find food. And by releasing and following them with all the different research techniques we use, we're able to see how they respond in nature to highways, to greenland. And if you look at the higher picture, even how they respond to things like underpasses. So this was an underpass designed to see if we take a highway and we have a tunnel and there's overpasses, will they use the overpass? If there's a tunnel, will they use the tunnel? And if you see the little white tushy, the gazelle used it no problem. And we're able to see that the gazelles can move in different spaces, that they learn how to find the safest mode of transportation. The graphic down here is a female who was released from Gazelle Valley with a GPS collar, and all those colors show where she was moving to find food or a mate and a herd and all the wonderful things she needs to survive. So we're able to really look at this data and compare it to all the other gazelles and say, wow, this is how they move in a space. This is how they find a safe space to go when they're potentially at risk. And the last little bit of research I'd like to mention is our newest research collaboration, and that's with the University of Haifa. And this one, I'll try to go through the science very quickly and very clearly. We have started working with a team that is working with hyperspectral imaging. And basically, the human eye perceives light in a very limited space of nanometers. And we also separate color according to we separate images based on three colors, red, green, blue, and those have different wavelengths. The researchers at Haifa have expanded that, not multispectral, which includes more colors on the spectrum of light, but it's a hyperspectral continuous spectrum or wider nonstop spectrum of light. And basically, the technology, the cameras, your normal phone camera looks at three types of colors, the red, green, blue. This camera looks at that continuous spectrum. It collects and processes every single pixel of information. And every pixel, it's not just getting the red or the blue, it's getting all the data points in between, in the widest to the shortest gamma rays. And with that information, we can really understand an object or a process. How does that connect to gazelles? We have started to work with the Haifa team to identify the unique signature of gazelles. And basically, this team comes in. This is Ravit Ben Shushan in the middle. She's the one taking the picture. And she needs to have a gazelle not move for about 10 minutes for her to get the most perfect, unique data points. And we happen to tranquilize gazelles before we release them. So when they are tranquilized, they are laid down, as you can see in the picture, and she's able to photograph them from every angle, every possible space she needs. And she's done this quite a few times. And that will allow her to understand how to see a gazelle on a satellite imagery, for example. And that means that we can also map gazelles in larger, wilder spaces. So to have a big satellite above and to say, wow, look at all these tiny individual gazelles. And the studies and the research partners from before, like the Ramada Nadiv and the Nature and Parks Authority, they're looking a lot at gazelle behavior. This is looking at geography, geology, movement. This is looking at a totally different element of gazelle's life. And one of the reasons I love the study is right now they are using our tranquilized gazelles, but this means that for further research, they're not going to need to tranquilize or anesthetize any gazelles. They're just going to need satellites to be able to spot them. This is also really useful for individual gazelles. For example, if somebody in a kibbutz reports that they think a gazelle is trapped in the kibbutz fence, we'll be able to see where the animal is if we think it's in danger. Another really, really important possible use of this sort of technology is other small to medium-sized endangered animals. It's pretty easy to see an elephant or a rhinoceros or a giraffe, but this is a small animal. And if we can get this technology right, all these other small endangered animals, we will be able to understand a similar way of counting how many are left in nature to understand what is the status of an endangered animal. So I really like that we are working together with people on so many different types of research projects. And the last element that, we've been talking about biology and universities and all this wonderful research element. But one of the big parts of the work we do at Gazelle Valley is community engagement. We were established because the community fought for us. And today we are the only urban nature park in the entire world where the community, where local people can help us release endangered animals. In all the pictures, in the above picture, we have teenagers, we have pensioners, we have a national service volunteer who's learning how the ear tag works. We have below three students from the university, they're computer science majors. Nothing related to zoology, but they became very, very engaged and came back over and over to volunteer with us. And in the last picture is another National Service member from a few years ago who not just helped release gazelles, but he was also intrinsic in creating another release program that we have at the Valley, and that is our tortoise program. This program is actually very well known in Israel, so I'm delighted to be expanding the base of people who know about what we do with the tortoise, sometimes called the Greek or Mediterranean tortoise. Here I'll refer to them as spurthide. They are a protected species in Israel, and this project that we have with releasing them is specifically between SPNI, our team, and the Israel Nature and Parks Authority. Just like with the gazelles, why do we need to rewild tortoises? First things first, they are very cute. Second, and scientifically, they are ecosystem engineers. That means they help change an environment or ecosystem around them. They dig holes for their own protection, to go and sleep or hibernate. And those holes are then used by other small animals, usually rodents, for protection against predators. So if a fox tries to eat a little rat, the rat can hide in a tortoise hole. Also, by digging through the soil, they help aerate it, which is good for then growing and fertilizing different species of plants. Just like with the gazelle, their droppings play an important role in seed dispersal. They eat a fruit, they poop out the seeds of the fruit, and by that, they are able to spread the plants further. And just like with the gazelles, they are also a vulnerable species. So the gazelles are endangered. These tortoises are considered a vulnerable species. And one of the main reasons that they are vulnerable in Israel is because normal Israelis, hikers, would see them and say, wow, they are super cute, and take them into their house and just keep them as a pet. And that removes these animals from the gene pool. It removes their ability to mate and to expand the population. And we meet constantly older visitors to the park that say, when I was a young man, I used to see them all the time in nature. I never see them anymore. And that's because we kept taking them. So now we offer people a chance to bring them back to nature. And this is very different than the gazelles. This is a program where people bring us a protected animal and we help do the release. It is important to state we are one of only two legal public tortoise rehabilitation compounds and centers in the entire state of Israel. Only two places have permission from the Nature and Parks Authority, from the government, to be doing the work we do. And me and the woman in the picture, the head of the herds of Faygle, we both have done courses through the government to work with wild animals. The project is very well known in Israel. It's become a big part of our wildlife education at the park. And one of the reasons it has been so successful is that many people who bring us a tortoise that is illegally being kept in their house are granted amnesty from legal action. In other words, if they bring it to us, they probably won't get a fine. They probably won't get in trouble. They are doing the right thing. They are bringing us the animal, telling us all the details of its life, and letting us take over the next step. And that has taken away a lot of fear from people admitting that they have an illegal animal in their home. We've created a safe space for them to do the right thing. Just like with gazelles, we have a particular process. The first, if somebody calls us or we have visitors to the park, we explain the law. We explain why you shouldn't have wild animals in your home. The next is seen in this picture. This is me conducting a health screening of a gazelle, of a tortoise. This particular tortoise actually had some internal bleeding issues and stayed with us for a while. Other tortoises do a little bit better. We continue to assess their adaptation, to assess their health, their behavior. Are they eating the foods the way they should be? Are they digging normally? Are they mating? This is also a great opportunity for public education. As you can see in both pictures, people are joining us. We any health care work that needs to be done, for example, trimming nails or applying medicine or taking off paint that maybe somebody wrote their name on a tortoise shell, which has happened. We do that work. And last but not least, we do all of this in a public compound right at the beginning of the park. So it's one of the first things visitors see and can learn about why and how to protect tortoises. We, at the beginning, released tortoises in the park. This is a survey done about half a year ago, Once we realized we had hundreds of tortoises, this is a survey of about 200 individuals, we realized it's really not appropriate to keep releasing them into Gazelle Valley. So we now do release them outside. We have a few different locations that are also decided based on what is optimal for these tortoises. Where can they meet a mate? Where can they be in the best natural environment? And oh, for those who didn't catch it, I'll play it again. This is just to quickly show you the difference between a tortoise and a gazelle release. Watch the gazelle very carefully. Here we go. The gazelle is on the left. And here comes another. I'll stop it here. Just so that we end on time, I'd like to end with what is the larger impact of releasing tortoises? Well, since we began the project in 2019, we have actually released over 1,000 tortoises. So 1,000 tortoises are now part of nature, back where they should be, mating, creating a larger population. Think of all those people that never see a tortoise on a hike anymore, now get to see them. All those rodents that now have tortoise holes for protection. Just in the last year, from October to October, 2023 to 24, we released 180 tortoises. And here you can see a newspaper clipping from about half a year ago when 30 tortoises were brought in one day. And it was all over the news. Everyone was talking about it. It was a lot of work for our team. And about 2, 3 weeks after this, because of all the media coverage, another 30 tortoises showed up in one day. So our team takes this very seriously. Every tortoise has the screening and intake, and they're all given the utmost respect and care, just to make sure that they are part of nature as they should be. And I'd like to end with, just as with gazelles, our community, people just like you, are so intrinsic to protecting animals. One, we have all of our volunteers. Here's a picture of volunteers in the pouring cold rain putting warm, dry straw into tortoise enclosures to give them a safe place and a dry place to rest during the rain. We also have volunteers that help us transport sick tortoises to the vet, so I don't have to leave work in the middle of the day. They pick up the tortoise, take it for surgery, etc. We have people that repair the fence, they replant different species for food, and they do all sorts of health work for our tortoises, and we love our volunteers. We've also done a lot of public education work, and a particularly exciting one is this past year we started working with the publisher and the family of a very popular children's book, Oren's Tortoise, Hatzav Shel Oren, and we are in the works of getting a disclaimer at the beginning of this book because it is a book about a little child who finds a tortoise. And the disclaimer says, please don't take animals out of nature, and explains why. So if my sister, who might be watching, is wondering why I haven't bought her the book yet, I'm waiting for that disclaimer. We also have a picture above a little child drew of good luck, tortoise. I hope nobody steps on you. That we offer all sorts of educational opportunities for children to feel like they're part of the tortoise release. And we have children who also bring in tortoises and come back all the time to check up on their tortoise. And with that, thank you so much for listening. And I really hope you've learned. And I know that we have lots of time for questions. And I'm here to hear all your questions and comments and to share a little bit more about how we protect wildlife in Israel.
Thank you very much, Faygle.
You're very
Unfortunately,
welcome, Jay.
I'm on the highway and don't have a place to pull over yet, but I'll try to do that before the
No
hour's up.
worries.
But if you and David can just handle the questions and keep going, I think it's go for it, please.
Okay.
And if there isn't any questions, I got one quick one. You said that when the amnesty program they probably won't get a ticket or probably won't get in trouble. Occasionally we get somebody in trouble.
Um, I have not been involved in anyone getting in trouble. Um, th- Again,
I can't hear you.
when I have personally not been involved in anyone who has gotten in trouble. That being said, again, it is illegal. So if somebody brings in 30 tortoises, there might be some discussions. That is not up for me to decide. I'm not the government body in charge of legal action. I am from the conservation side and the education side. So that is why we work hand in hand with the government body. And if somebody maybe has been mistreating animals, then it will be taken the next step. Again, on intake, we ask a lot of questions, the sort of food they're eating, the environment they were in, and then that information is can be passed on to the proper authorities if we have further questions.
Faygle, we have a question from M. Kamine. What is the size of the preserve and is it fully fenced to keep them in?
Yes. So our preserve is 250 dunums in Israeli standards, which is about 67 acres, and it is completely fenced in. We actually have volunteers and National Service members that do a fence check twice a day. We're checking for holes so that predators like the jackals or dogs do not get in. That's very, very important part of our work. And because of the fence, it means predators don't come in, and it's also higher than a gazelle can jump. You saw in that video, it can jump over a fence. Our fences are very tall, and that prevents the gazelles from accidentally jumping onto the highway.
Thank you. And we have another question from D. Friedman. Are you concerned about the pollution from the runoff of Jerusalem into the reserve in Jerusalem?
That is a fantastic question. Part of my job is not just the gazelles, my job is the entire field operations. So I do work with the water systems. We have recently started a research collaboration with the Geological Institute, and they are doing chemical checks of the water to see what the levels of magnesium and nitrates and sulfates and all those are. We are also in the process of bringing in biology researchers. We know that runoff water doesn't mean that it's necessarily clean. That being said, we also have fantastic staff and volunteers who are in the water. We clean where we can. We get rid of a lot of plastic. We even work to get rid of microplastics when we see it. And it's a big part of our work is also circulating water to help introduce hydrogen and to keep it safe. For Murray Simon, is tushy a scientific term? It absolutely is.
Great. We have another very interesting question from Carol Lefkov. How old or how big do the tortoises have to be to mate?
How big or old?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Probably a couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, the tortoises we have live to about 60 years, or they can live longer. So that's quite a few years worth of mating they have in them. The first couple months of a tortoise's life, if you remember, the very first picture I showed was a young lady's hand with tiny, tiny tortoises. The first few months of a tortoise's life, the shell is actually quite soft, so it's much more vulnerable to predators. So we actually also now take in newborn tortoises sometimes just to offer them a safe place away from predators. Even though the goal of our rehab is gazelle tortoises that have been raised in a home, and we do the rehabilitation, we now also just create a safe space for babies.
Great. So I'm trying to find the question amidst all the very nice compliments you're getting, Faygo.
Thank you, thank you.
One of them is from Joe Lev. I would like to know what is being done about the packs of wild dogs.
Fantastic question. I wonder if Jay knows more. Right now, a big part of the wild dog issue is in the south of Israel, again, along the Gaza envelope. Um, Currently, we are still assessing, trying to understand the extent of the issue. It has been mentioned in Israeli media. You can find lots of articles about it in Hebrew. We on the ground are aware of the issue. people who live in the areas where the feral dogs are attacking are being supported and are getting resources on what to do with them. For again, they're attacking pets, they're attacking farm animals. It's a lot harder to prevent them from attacking a wild gazelle. That being said, similar to other wild animals that are becoming nuisance animals like jackals or wild boars, there are people that are pro culling. You know, these are all much bigger ecological conversations and ethical conversations.
Great. We have a question from Jerry Friedman. Do you
Mhm.
do anything to teach gazelles to fear predators once you release them?
No, once they are released, I have nothing to do with them anymore except for following to see how they're adapting. Because again, we want to see what they do naturally. When they are in the park, we have rules about no dogs in the park for their protection. We have all sorts of, systems in place. That being said, in the park, there are lots of children. And some children are very quiet and respectful, and some children try to chase the gazelles. And I walk near the gazelle sometimes to do my work, and it scares them a little bit. And sometimes it's sad because I just want to pet them, and sometimes I know it's for the best because they see me as a potential threat, and that is how I should be perceived because there are people out there who would try to hunt them. We do talk about, for example, the noise pollution of the area. We're right beside a highway, and does that desensitize them to highways in nature? The fact that most of our gazelles don't go and play on the highway says that even though they hear the highway sounds and the car sounds, they're not jumping onto the highway. It's they're still understanding that certain things are threats. And research with our partners like Ramad and Nadiv helps us understand the nuances of what they understand as a threat after. But no, I don't attack them in the park.
Great. We have a question from Murray. Is tushy a scientific term?
Absolutely. I work with a lot of children. We do a lot of education. So actually, one of my favorite things to tell visitors, are gazelles, is you can even, if you saw some of the pictures, they're excellent at camouflage. They match with the colors of nature. So I like to tell visitors, look for something white. White is the tushy, and that helps people find gazelles. So yes, it is scientific in my mind.
Great. Another one from a question from Linda Weiss. How does 67 acres support 140 gazelles? Do you supplement with food?
Fantastic question. It's one of another really important reason we do gazelle releases. We don't want too many gazelles in an enclosed space. The amount of gazelles we have right now is, it's okay. It's borderline. We've had two releases last week. We have another one tomorrow morning. We want to release more and more gazelles. It's better for the ones in nature, and it helps ensure that the gazelles we have in the park have an appropriate range of territory and food. So we don't want 200 gazelles in the park. It would be great for visitors. All they would see is gazelles, but it would not be for the animals' benefit. And that's also part of balancing urban nature is understanding what is great for people to see versus what is actually of benefit for the animals. And I would rather have less gazelles and healthier gazelles.
Great. We have a question from Ronnie Sims. Um, are there materials about the gazelles and tortoises available for use for American Jewish Day or supplementary schools?
Excellent question. Hopefully, we will have some things online, more things online in English soon. There are some materials on the website for SPNI. I can check for you how much of it is in English. On our website, we have a lot of educational materials. We are in the process of translating more into English and Arabic. As well, we are soon opening a new observation center in the middle of the park, a window under the lake, a science lab for older students, and part of that is even more educational material, much of it which will be available. And you're always welcome to contact us to talk about a Zoom with a class or some sort of project, some sort of support for the park. We're happy to arrange.
Great. Another question from D. Friedman. In the reserves, are they one herd or are they separate herds? And do they compete for territory or do they live along each other if they're separate herds?
These are excellent questions. I'm delighted. We have 8 individual herds. 2 of the herds are what we call bachelor pads. They are male gazelles who have not succeeded in becoming a territorial male to his own harem. We have other herds that include a range of females with a territorial male, the fawns. But there is a mix. I saw another person asked about the gene pool. The males from the bachelor pads will sneak in and they will fight for the dominance of a herd with females. They will sneak in when the territorial male is busy mating and they will mate. So the truth is, there is a good mix of gene mixing going on. And the animals do sometimes move. We have one gazelle in the park who has a GPS collar, just to see, a little bit further research that we're able to do. And we've noticed in the last year that as he got older, we tagged him when he was a young male, that as he's gotten older, he has shifted from being in a herd with other young males and females still with his mother nearby, I guess, to now he lives in one of the bachelor pads. So we were able to see that age and stage when he became a bachelor.
Great. I think this is the last question because time is pressing. Are you bringing in new gazelles to improve the gene pool?
Currently, we are not. At the beginning, we obviously had to because we only started with 3 gazelles. At this point, like I just said previously, there is currently enough mixing between the herds and between males and females, but it is a conversation we've had for the future that we've talked about. What does it mean to have an enclosed space and enclosed animals? Our birds, our snakes, lots of our small animals are able to leave and to mate with animals outside the park and come back. The gazelles can't. So right now we don't have to introduce new ones, but it is a thought for maybe down the line in the future. We're not there yet. And that's partly why we also, of course, work with wildlife vets so that we continue to monitor the health of our animals.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Faygle.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everyone, for the great
Thank,
questions. Yeah,
thank you, David. Wow, we really learned a lot. It was incredible. It was also a great way for me to take a tough drive from the north, listening to
you're very
this.
welcome.
Th-
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for the incredible comments. Really, Faygle, I don't know if you're looking at them, but there's just nonstop praising of this webinar. So
Thank you very much,
we will
everyone. Yeah.
we'll definitely have you back.
Thank you very
And
much. And I highly recommend it for those still on here, if you like gazelles. A few weeks back, my boss, the park ecologist Amir Balaban, did a lecture on the love language of gazelles. It is for adults only, and I do recommend watching that as well. We have also some really fantastic webinars coming up, but I'm sure Jay knows how to tell you all about that.
well, I also want to just tell them again that if they're coming to Israel and they haven't been, or if they haven't been to Gazelle Valley lately, because every time I'm there, it's different. And there's the big
Yes.
visitor center that's going to open. Maybe you should mention that. And tell people I don't know how to find it or look it up online and let us know. We can
Yeah.
alert Faygle. You can contact Faygle directly, and we really want to make sure you see this, enjoy this incredible space we
Mhm.
have in Jerusalem.
Everybody is welcome to visit. We are again open for free, 6:30 in the morning until sunset every single day. You can go to our website, gazellevalley.com, org. I should probably learn that. Just type in Gazelle Valley, Jerusalem, you will see us. We have a very active Facebook page where we constantly upload pictures, news stories about animals and plants in the park. It is in Hebrew, but you can always use the translate button on Facebook. We have an Instagram. And on our website is also where people like teachers or youth minion leaders can find more information about some educational activities you can do with your students. And you can always be in touch with us as well. And if you come visit us, we are centrally located in Jerusalem. We have free parking. We are on many major bus lines, and we really do look forward to seeing everyone. It's really a unique place in the heart of the city. And we've done the research. There are almost no places like this in the entire world. There's only one other place that has a natural river under with a window under the river in the US. No other place uses the community to release endangered animals. No other place is like us. We are so, so unique.
That's so awesome. I fully recommend and approve of Fagel's comments there. Really a
Mhm.
fun place. Worth a trip to Jerusalem, if for no other reason.
I agree. We'll make you
Um,
a coffee if you come just for us.
Thank you so much, Faygle. Thank you, David. I'm Jay Shofet. This has been Chevral Aganat Teva's Society for Protection of Nature in Israel's live webinar. We're coming to you in 2 weeks, I believe, with Yossi Leshem. 2 weeks from today, our esteemed ornithologist is going to be talking about, I'm not sure what. David, do you know? But we'll be. It's on our. It's been on
About
our.
the barn now.
Oh, the bar, barn owl is an agent for peace and biological
Yeah.
pest control. Fascinating story of the barn owl and what SPNI and Yossi Leshem have done with it. Thanks everybody for all the incredible comments, feedback. We really appreciate it. Please let your friends know about these webinars, and we'll be back in 2 weeks, and then in January, and every couple weeks, plus minus, probably through the summer. So thank you very much. Everybody have a good night, good afternoon, and we will see you soon. Thank you, David. Thank you, Faygle.
Thank you, Jay and David. And
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone for joining.
Thank you, Faygo.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Good night.
Bye.